Hey everybody, I want to run through our PCC report, hitting some headlines here before we get into our devotional on the day. This comes from the Federalist.com. 10 charged in ambush, attempted murder of ICE agents by Antifa terror cells. Now, let me just read part of this to you. 10 suspects were arrested and each were charged with 3 counts of attempted murder of a federal officer this weekend after Texas ICE ICE facility was attacked and 1 police officer was shot in the neck. This is the second of 2 attacks targeting ICE officers in Texas in the last week, just weeks after violent anti-ICE riots rocked Los Angeles. That's where they sent 700 Marines in there. They calmed down after that. Now, the Marines didn't do anything other than protect the federal buildings, but Antifa's not stupid either. Assault agents, ICE officers increased 413% last month. So you increase the assaults against ICE officers who are deporting people who are illegal in this country or violent criminals, just in 1 month alone increased by 413%. The love of many will wax cold in the end times. According to DHS, this should have come as no surprise in light of the Democrats' increasingly violent anti-ICE rhetoric. A house divided cannot stand, and we are very much a house divided from the top to the bottom. We are split in half. Now Elon Musk has come out and said that he is starting a third political party. I don't remember what the name of it is now, the American Party or something like that. We are very much a house divided. Far left extremists are praising the shooting terrorist attack on the ICE facility in Alvarado, Texas, and are encouraging others to carry out similar attacks. So they're actually tweeting out for more people to come in and attack them, to attack these ICE agents. There have been ICE agents that have been followed home, who have been outed as ICE agents, posted online, everywhere else. Somebody knows, so everybody knows who they are. They're showing a picture of these 10 people now. 1 local police officer was shot in the neck. You know, this is just another example of domestic terrorism in the United States, but we're not calling it a full-on terrorism act. We are using every other adjective other than to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. But in the same right, Trump just lifted the terror designation against the people in power in Syria because he needs them. That's why it was lifted, because he needs them. Which means now we can go in there and fund them and do all that, which we've been funding. We funded ISIS for many years. Let's see what else. Let's see what Fox News has. And I'm not 100% sure if I'm pronouncing this guy's name right. Mamdani, I guess, Mamdani, sparks outrage with a key voting bloc after a vulgar photo resurfaces. Now, if you don't know who this guy is, he just won it was either the primary as the new mayor of, or it may have been the actual, I think he won the primary so he can run for mayor, but I could be wrong about that. Um, let's see. I don't want to tell y'all something wrong. I know he was running against Mayor Cuomo, who was the ousted mayor of New York after his sexual harassment allegations, which he probably did it. I don't know that. I wasn't there. But primary election, yep. He won the primary. He won the Democratic mayoral candidate for this year's upcoming election for the new mayor. And he's an open Muslim. I mean, very open Muslim. I'm not getting into your religious backgrounds, but God will give you over to what your heart desires. And apparently the people in New York want that type of leadership, which will be a teetotal disaster. I wouldn't go to New York if you paid me. Sorry, honey. There's a couple things I wouldn't mind seeing in New York. You know, Broadway play, something like that. Something you say you did, but those people are nuts. Supreme Court lifts block on executive order allowing federal workforce cuts to proceed. So they had a ban on that. They are now in the process of letting that go. I want to give y'all an update on something as well. I told you that the moratorium in the big beautiful bill for the 10-year moratorium against lawsuits against AI production and these AI centers that Trump wants to build. Each one of these centers has to be powered by a nuclear power plant, by the way. But they, instead of a 10-year moratorium on those lawsuits by the states, it's only a 5-year moratorium. The headline that I read, it had been taken completely out, but that is not the case. So we're going to get full-on AI probably in the next 5 to 6 years. Schumer threatens grave implications if GOP moves forward with $9.4 billion in cuts to Medicare. IRA, I apologize, I can't read today. IRS announces a change in how churches can discuss electoral politics. The IRS made its case jointly with the very plaintiffs who lodged a case against them last year. IRS clears a way for churches to endorse political candidates. So apparently they're not going to take their 501(c) status away from them anymore. The text of the Johnson Amendment may cause certain otherwise tax-exempt organizations to lose their 501(c)(3) status if they participate in or intervene in any political campaign on behalf of any candidate for public office. Churches weren't allowed to do that. You could do it, but you ran the risk of losing your tax-exempt status. Apparently that is no longer the case. You will know them by their fruit. Watch these large organizations now start endorsing these political parties, and it'll be a full-on political endorsement. It'll be in individual candidates, but you'll see the pattern as it rolls through. Slide over to the other side of the aisle and see what RT's got going on today. Trump admits Ukraine conflict difficult to tackle. I thought he was going to resolve it in 24 hours. Trump promises Zelensky 10 missiles, the Axos missile. Iran, no one's ready for what comes after the Islamic Republic. Okay. Russia took Afghanistan without firing a shot. 3 killed in barbaric Ukraine drone strike on public beach. Ukraine threatens new invasion of 2 Russian regions. Now, this is just the Ukraine-Russian war in Iran and Israel. Israel plans to move Gaza population to a single humanitarian city. And here's one for you. And I'm going to show you 2 parts of the aisle on this one. No new Epstein documents to be released. Department of Justice. Now, if I remember correctly, Donald Trump said that he was going to release those Epstein files when he got into office. That's one of the first things I'm doing. I'm cutting it all loose. You can see who's on the files. You know, everybody's going to see everybody. Well, that didn't happen. It doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. And Trump has already been linked to those lists going down to the Epstein Island. He was on the manifest of the Lolita Express, which was the airplane going down there. And even Elon Musk came out and said, we know why he's not releasing the Epstein files, because his name is in there. Now, if you ask Alex Jones, he's going to have a completely different take on it, because anything Trump does, he loves. And I won't say everything, because he does, every once in a while, he'll be like, no, you don't need to be doing this. No, you don't be doing that. President Trump blows up at reporter asking about exploding Jeffrey Epstein case whitewash. Pedophile island trafficking victim rages at Trump administration following Epstein client list cover-up. They don't want those names out there. You'd probably be shocked to hear some of the names on there. Tucker Carlson, apparently in some interview that he did a while back, I haven't listened to it, Tucker Carlson actually apologized to Jeffrey Epstein. And this is just absolutely disgusting. You know, I asked y'all to pray for the victims in the horrific flooding down in the Texas Hill Country. And there was a post by this lady. We're supposed to stop the world and stop everything we're doing to go and hunt for these little missing white girls. Targeting white girl Texas flood victims, God's will to wash them little C words away. Consequences for what? Maybe it was God's will to wash them little blanks away. This comes from Sadie's World, is the lady's handle. She's the creator of the post. A former Houston mayoral appointee sparked outrage by filming several social media rants blasting Texas flood rescue efforts, claiming little female victims who perished in the tragedy weren't worth sympathy because they were white. If you don't think this country is divided, you are sadly mistaken. You know, we've been going through the book of Matthew, and Jesus talks about a house divided cannot stand. Can't stand. It is absolutely not going to stand. It could be your personal household, it's going to be this country, whatever. But once you start dividing that house, once they start to split, there's nothing you're going to be able to do at that point. Because at some point, that crack will get so big that it will just continue to roll over and that house will go away. It won't be a house anymore. This comes from Michael Snyder, the Economic Collapse blog. 12 important questions that all Americans should be asking about the shameful attempt to cover up the truth about Jeffrey Epstein. I'll be honest with you, it kind of makes me sick to read these headlines sometimes. Why were Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell arrested and charged with operating an enormous sex trafficking ring that supposedly involved thousands of clients, if no such clients ever existed? The DOJ, this new GAO memo, admits that there were countless victims of Epstein on video, but no client list or evidence of other rapists they can charge. Oh, it claims Epstein's wasn't using videos as blackmail. Why did the U.S. Attorney Pam Bondi tell Fox News in February that Epstein's client list was sitting on her desk right now to review? I'm just reading the questions. What was in the thousands of documents related to the Epstein case that were suddenly discovered in February when Bondi claimed that Epstein's flight logs would make you sick in March? What did she mean by that? Elon Musk said Trump's name was on it, and he's been linked to it like 3 or 4 times was on there. In May, Bondi confessed that there were tens of thousands of videos related to Epstein's investigation. Where are the videos? I mean, I don't want to watch them. Don't get me wrong. Other than Jeffrey Epstein and Giselle Maxwell, or Ghislaine, I don't know, whatever. Other than Epstein and Maxwell, why hasn't anyone else involved in the sex trafficking operation been arrested? The memo was released on Sunday night as there will be no further disclosure in this case. Does this mean that the Trump administration's search for the truth ends here? On the night that Epstein died, why were there so many strange coincidences? The memo also states that there is no evidence that could predict an investigation against uncharged third parties. Does this mean that none of the men that were having sex with underage girls will ever be brought to justice? Yes, Michael Snyder, that's exactly what that means. Found no incriminating client list. Sickening. It really is. Jesus tells us that we are to protect the innocent, to help the poor, protect those who cannot protect themselves. I don't know anybody that's much more defenseless than a child. He also said, what you do to these little ones, you do to me. Think about that real hard, what I just said. What you do to these little ones, you do to me. If you clothe them, you clothe me. If you feed them, you feed me. If you hurt them, you hurt me. I could use a whole lot of language that I don't use anymore because this just makes me disgusted. I've always told my wife I would love to get involved in rescuing these people, but I want to do it a little bit different way because I want to be the shotgunner going in the front door. And I'll volunteer every time to be the first one through the door. It's disgusting. And you should have a special place in hell for this. Right beside Hitler. Just my personal opinion. But God's will be done. My personal feelings don't matter. My anger in my flesh doesn't matter. Should we pray for these people? Yeah. They need all the prayers they can get. God's will be done. You know, sometimes the hardest thing that we have to do as Christians is get out of our flesh and get into a godly state of mind. And sometimes that is extremely difficult, especially as for me if children are being hurt. Should be for you if children are being hurt. The victims of the Epstein sex trafficking operation are never going to get any justice. Yes, those are Michael Snyder's words. And all of the very sick men that committed unspeakable crimes are never going to be held accountable. That's probably a very true statement. Very true statement. But the Trump administration ends a long-standing TSA rule that you have to take your shoes off if you're required to when you go through the metal detectors at the airports. That the TSA have never, not one time, ever caught anybody trying to blow up a airplane or a boat or wherever else TSA is stationed. TSA is actually stationed outside of some sporting venues, basketball, football, whatever. You know, sometimes you just have no words. Sometimes you just absolutely do not have any words. Oh, my goodness. My goodness, my goodness, my goodness. I just don't understand how you can do that to a child and think it's okay. These people are truly, truly sick people. They really are. I don't have any words. I just don't have any. Oh, goodness gracious. My goodness, my goodness. Very timely devotional. I went a little long on that. I apologize. I got a little wound up with the children. Dwelling in the house of the Lord. In Psalms 27, David besieges God in an intense, urgent prayer. He pleads in verse 7, "Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy also upon me and answer me." David's prayer is focused on one desire, one ambition, and one consuming, longing need. One thing have I desired of the Lord that I will seek. Verse 4. This comes from Psalms 27. He is testifying, I have one prayer, Lord, one request. It is my single most important goal in life, my constant prayer. The one thing I desire, I will seek after it with all that is within me. What was this one thing that David desired above all else? He tells us that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. Same verse, 4. We should all desire to dwell in the house of the Lord. We should all desire, as David did, to be in God's presence constantly. We should pray intimately to the Father, to dwell in his house all our days, that he never leaves us, that we are never without his blessing, glory, that he never removes his hand off of us. That is a constant prayer. Father, please don't ever leave me. If you've ever been in the presence of the Lord, if you've ever read and prayed earnestly in prayer, and you know, sometimes you don't feel that connection, and then there are times that you really feel that connection, that you can really feel how close you are. You can feel his presence on you. If you've ever felt that, and then there are times that you're going through hard times that you don't feel that, it is a empty place to be. It's just one of those areas where you don't like being and you don't want to be there. Now, did the Lord take his hand off of us? No. But he may be allowing us to go through it on our own to test faith, whatever his will is, whatever his reasoning is at the time. But David, like David, our one ambition, our one desire is an all-consuming longing need to be in the Lord's house for all our days. Make no mistake, David was not shunning the outside world, nor a hermit seeking to hide away in a deserted place. On the contrary, David was a passionate man of action. He was a great warrior with huge throngs singing his victories in battle. He was also passionate in his prayer and devotion with a heart that yearned for God. We should all have a heart that yearns for God. The Lord had blessed David with many of his desires of his heart. Indeed, David tasted everything a man could want in life. He had riches, wealth, power, authority. He had the respect, praises, and adulation of men. God had given him Jerusalem as the capital for the kingdom, and he was surrounded by devoted men who were willing to die for him. David had everything he wanted. In this earthly life, he had everything he wanted that anybody would want. Most of all, David was a worshiper, a praising man who gave thanks to God for all his blessings. He testified, "The Lord laid blessings on me daily." I want to say this. If you wake up and you breathe air, the Lord gave you a blessing. The food that goes in your mouth, the water that you taste, the clothes that you wear, the cars you drive, the jobs you have are all blessings from the Lord, because you don't get anything unless it comes from above. Nothing. After all these blessings were showered on him, still David sought one thing. He was saying, "There is a way of living I seek now. My soul longs for uninterrupted spiritual intimacy with my God. May it be so for us as well." You remember we talk about intimacy with the Lord. And we should all strive to have that intimacy at every turn of our lives. In every way, we should do that. That is the one thing that we should be striving to have, is that closeness, that bond, that feeling of, I know I'm in the Lord's house. I know I'm there. I want to be there. Somebody let me in and lock the door behind me so I can't get out. You just lock it up, do whatever you need to do, put bars on the windows so I can't run through them. That's where David wanted to be. That's where we should be. But you need to give thanks for the smallest blessing and the biggest one. Father, thank you for the many blessings that you give me. Thank you for the air that I breathe, the water that I drink, the clothes that I wear. David thanked him intimately, daily, for everything he did for him. Because, and make no mistake, God may be doing something for you that you don't even know about. God may be keeping something away from you that you don't know about. People in your lives, whatever it may be, he may be doing that and you don't even realize it. Thank him for blessings that you don't even know. Thank him for everything. And yearn to dwell in his house, always. All right, I'm going to jump off of here. Y'all keep your head on a swivel. And I mean that in earnest, that you need to keep your head on a swivel. And may God guide your steps.